life or experience it to the full and make some sort of difference in your life and others unless you are creatively and critically viewing it and participating in it through your reaction to acknowledging that life is like a bunch of converse dualities.
There's always a bad for the good and a good for the bad.
And even gray areas that you have to struggle with too.
To understand, right. And yeah, a lot of people, like we said, they just try to, I mean, it's beyond optimism. It's just like, the world is a happy place, and I don't have to worry about these things, you know? And then when something terrible happens to them, they're asking why. Well, the world is not just a happy place, you know? Things happen, catastrophes happen. I mean, you never know when something like that is going to be there, so you have to be able to understand that, you know, life itself is duality.
Yeah. And like, speaking of optimism, on page 21, he says his personal philosophy is anchored in optimism. And he's not talking about optimism where la la la, the world is a happy place full of sunshine. It's like optimism of viewing the world with hope and like a hopeful future, for a future with purpose. And if you're viewing like the world as having a purpose, even if it does not have one now, but it can have a purpose in people's lives, then that gives you the will to fight for that better world. And without that optimism, in that sense, there's no reason to carry on.
That reminded me of Frere, because Frere was saying without hope, there's no way we could have the revolution, because hopelessness will, you know, if they stop hoping.
If you don't have hope, there's no reason to act.
Exactly, there's no purpose, there's no motivation. And it's funny that the both, well, I mean, not funny, but it makes sense that the both of them ground their beliefs in.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of similarities between Alinsky and Frere.
Yeah, even though Frere seems to somehow state his ideas in a more cohesive manner, but makes sense. I liked on that same page on 21, he says, from Alice in Wonderland, Tiger Lily points out that the flowers that talk grow out of hard beds of ground, and in most gardens, Tiger Lily says, they make the beds too soft so that the flowers are always asleep. So what is he saying about society if he using this comparison, you know? When I first saw that, I was like, Alice in Wonderland. What are you talking about? But it's actually a really good analogy there.
Life is really cushy, so they're just laying back and taking it as it goes.
There's no hardship or problems, so they don't have to think or worry or do anything.
But the flowers that talk, and I view this as he's portraying it as dialoguing and taking action. They're the ones that grow out of the hardship, like struggling to survive in hard beds of dirt.
Right. I thought that was just a really nice.
That is really cool.
Little analogy there that he got from Alice in Wonderland.
Of means and ends.
I really liked this quote from Alfred North Whitehead. We cannot think first and act afterwards. From the moment of birth, we are immersed in action and can only be fully guided by taking thought.
Praxis. Taking thought. Praxis.
You're right. When I read that, I thought of that.
I like taking thoughts because normally it's like take action. It's like no.
Exactly, take thought. Because that makes sense. As soon as you're born, I mean, you cry, you eat, you sleep. You know, you're acting already, and yet it's not. You're not thinking about it. You're just an infant. You know, there's just like instincts. So, for a person to say I'm an activist because I act doesn't make sense. Because
I'm a thoughtfulist.
Exactly. Nice. Very nice. You have to think about what you're doing, like Frere had said too.
I'm a praxicist.
That's a good idea. We should be praxicists. Because we should say that if someone says, well, I act, what do you do? Even an infant acts. They don't think about what they're doing. This is
That's cool.
Very nice. I liked that. And then this chapter focuses on that perennial question, does the end justify the means? And what he thinks we should say instead is, does this particular end justify this particular means? So from what I got from this was, it's all about the situation and the circumstances as to whether the ends justifies the means or not. It's all relative. I think he has 11 or 12 rules about ethics and means and ends. And the first one is one's concern with the ethics of means and ends varies inversely with one's personal interest in the issue.
What page is that?
Oh, it's 26. Did you
I'm still on page 25.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that the men who pile up the heaps of discussion and literature on the ethics of means and ends rarely write about their own experiences in the perpetual struggle of life and change, and they are strangers, moreover, to the burdens and problems of responsibility and the unceasing pressure for immediate decisions. And later on in that paragraph it says, we agree with the ends but not the means, or this is not the time. And I'm really strongly reminded of Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail, where he's responding to the bishops that are basically going, well, we agree with your mission, but why did you have to go and get yourself arrested?
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah, and like he said, going into the next page, 26, it varies inversely with one's personal interest in the issue. Well, I'm pretty sure the bishop wasn't a minority, an African American who couldn't vote.
Where?
It's right here.
One's concern. I still don't see it.
This highlighted.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So if you don't have a deep interest in the actual issue that's being struggled with, then they're not going to agree with it, They'll, oh, it's a great idea, but I don't really think you have to make such a big hullabaloo,
Yeah, like they don't have any personal experience. They've never experienced what Martin Luther King and his family experienced.
Exactly.
Like what he says about having to explain to his daughter why she can't go to the white-only amusement park.
And I'm sure the bishop doesn't have any idea what that's like. So I mean, he doesn't agree with it because he doesn't understand it. He has no interest in it. And then he says,
basically the bishops were going, oh, why do you have to be such a lawbreaker? Why can't you do things peacefully according to what other people are saying to do? But like, what other people are saying to do, that isn't what's working for them.
Right. It's not. People have been trying to achieve his goal, the goal he was trying to achieve, such a long time, and none of it had worked. So it was time for something new, something different, something radical, and because it was the only way to get people's attention. And see, the second one is the judgment of the ethics of means is dependent, it's the next one right there, upon the political position of those sitting in judgment. So, like we said, going on with the bishop in the letter for Birmingham jail, it's, of course he's not going to agree with it because, the bishop he's the bishop. He's supposed to stand up for the law and for, reinforce all of that. Even though there's a church and state separation, whatever, that they try to coexist and help each other. And so he's trying to.
Well, Martin Luther King was basically saying in far more diplomatic and polite terms, screw you, you don't know what it's like. You don't know how I feel and what I have gone through.
Yeah.
So don't pass judgment like that on what I am doing until you know truly why I'm doing it.
Yeah, and yet at the same time, I mean, the bishop he holds a place where he can be, demoted or taken off, and so he doesn't want to lose that. So of course he's gonna try to, sway him into, well, why don't you try to do it more peacefully, and try to play that card, the religion card, and all of that.
Yeah, but it's like we tried that, it didn't work.
Yeah. So. I liked this on page 27 when he says, "To us, the Declaration of Independence is a glorious document and an affirmation of human rights. To the British, on the other hand, it was a statement notorious for its deceit by omission." I've never thought about it that way.
I've never thought about it that way. I don't think I have either.
That,
like, everyone's like, oh yeah, but the British are like, boo, you're like traitors.
Right, because, I mean, they did help, I mean, they were the founders, that's where the founders of the Declaration and all of that stuff, that's where they grew up and they were born, and, I mean, the British people they were the founders, the original founders of like the colonies
like
and everything.
It says here in that same paragraph, the revolution cited all the injustices, but they didn't cite any of the benefits that they got from England.
The food and the medicine and the help with the wars, I mean, the only reason that the colonies even got so close to being able to have a revolution was that the British had helped them, and then no one ever really thinks about that. It's true that's not. I've never had a U.S. history teacher say, although the British helped us out a lot, there were some bad points that we had to get away from them. It was always just like the British were terrible, tyrannical people.
In here it says the Declaration of Independence was a call to war, and well, you don't really think about whoa, war, that's really the ultimate thing. When I think of the Declaration, I think of the American flag and patriotic music, but I don't think of its correlation with actual life and death.
Right. It just seems like a very how do you say, righteous,
idealistic.
Idealistic kind of statement that we put out there that we are independent, we deserve our rights, and yet in reality it's like when they had written it originally, it was well, this is what's wrong and we're gonna fight you. And
they were willing to give their lives for it.
Yeah, and dispose of lives of others as well. I mean, those British soldiers that they fought, they were, I mean, fellow countrymen. So strange, but true. Oh no. Did you see anything on page 29?
Page 29?
Because I was going to move on to 30.
No, sure. We can do that.
Okay. Well, we're skipping one, but on page 30, the fourth rule, the judgment must be made in the context of the times in which the action occurred and not from any other chronological vantage point. And here he's talking about the Boston Massacre and how the British people said that some of the townspeople had been the aggressors and the soldiers had shot in self-defense, while other people said no, the British overreacted and they pretty much killed all of the other townspeople and it was a massacre, And they actually had a confession from Patrick Carr that they were the aggressors, and yet Sam Adams came along and blasted Carr's testimony in the eyes of all pious New Englanders by pointing out that he was an Irish papist who had probably died in the confession of the Roman Catholic Church. So, just because he was Roman Catholic, he couldn't possibly have been telling the truth because he was just trying to confess his sins, you know?
So he was basically saying he was just trying to seem righteous.
Right. It doesn't seem like why would you lie on your deathbed? You know,